Hi, my name is Clare and I'm the mother of 3 teenagers with FASD.
And I'm Jessica, a PhD student researching educational interventions for children with FASD.
And together we are the hosts of a Spotlight on FASD, the UK's first podcast dedicated to shining a spotlight on fetal alcohol spectrum disorders.
FASD is a condition caused by prenatal alcohol exposure that affects hundreds of thousands of children across the UK.
And we're here to bring these conversations out of the shadows and make sure that no one living with FASD feels alone.
Hi everyone, welcome back to Spotlight on FASD. This is episode 8, a different kind of festive. So we're getting all Christmassy with our theme this week, and we want to talk about what Christmas looks like with FASD in the home. If you're new to FASD, if you're a recent adopter, if you're a recent foster carer, if you've had a couple of Christmases and are wondering what's going on here, we just want to talk about how Christmas is different and how it can be better.
Yeah, and I think that my message at the start of this episode is, if you've had a couple of Christmases, and you might be dreading this one a little bit secretly, but don't feel like you can say that you're dreading Christmas with your children. But believe me, I know that you can be dreading it. I hope that by the end of this episode, you will feel a little bit better. That we'll have shed a little spotlight of hope onto things, because I know how hard it can be, and it's so complex, such a complex situation. But we want to talk about how and why Christmas and the whole festive season looks different, and why it needs to, and then talk about a few little tips and strategies that can make things a little bit easier. It's going to be tricky, but that can be said for all, Christmas isn't a breeze for any parent or caregiver. But I think that we have so much pressure from so many different angles about what Christmas needs to look like and what it should look like, and it's such a wonderful time of family and coming together and spending time together. And then obviously pandemic means that it's different for everyone, but I feel, I don't know about you, Jess, but I feel there's a greater pressure this year to make Christmas even more special because the year has been rubbish. Mm-hmm. And if you are a relatively new parent or caregiver, and I know that I can look down this unique kind of niche little road, if you are a fairly new adopter, and you haven't, first of all, if you're a new adopter and you're about to have your first Christmas, definitely don't want to scare you. It is going to be lush, but it's going to be very different to what you might be imagining it's going to be right now. And then I think that, I had been thinking a lot about that there's so much pressure that families like mine are really, really going to be feeling it, because, one little thing, everyone this year, it's kind of acceptable, even the most bar humbug of anti-Christmas people, it's acceptable to have your trees and your decorations up way earlier. And you see the reasoning behind it, don't you? Because it has been a little bit of a shit show this year, and it has for everybody. And so automatically most people think, especially with kids, let's get the tree up all that earlier, let's get all the decorations up. And then the FASD parents across the land are like,
that time again.
Let's not do that earlier. Let's not.
Yeah. It's about that, it's pressure, and it's pressure for everybody. And over the years, through my journey with FASD, I've done a lot of work with adoptive families, foster parents, foster carers, just different family makeups really who have got FASD in their lives. And something that comes up a lot is this dream, and I'm sure this will be the same for families without FASD as well. I'm sure a lot of families would say this, but this dream. So you're adopting a child, you get your first foster placement, whatever it is. You're like, oh, this is amazing. This is, we're going to do all these things, and you see the Virgin Holidays advert where the family of 4 are skipping through Disney World in Florida and the sun's shining and they're all happy and they've got their matching t-shirts on, and it just looks like the absolute dream. And you start picturing it, you're like, oh, we've got this child. And then we hit November and all the Christmas adverts start coming on the telly, and you're bombarded in the same way. But all these families sitting down, they've got this huge, great big table, and they've all got their little Christmas cracker hats on, and they're all laughing and joking and sharing presents. And again, it's put in this image, this dream. And I'm trying not to get too yoga teachery here, because we talk about this a lot in that part of my life, where you shouldn't create dreams for yourself, because it's really, really unhealthy. And the only person who's going to be disappointed is you, because you've created a dream that's unrealistic. But it just comes from so many areas, and especially at Christmas.
Do you not think you don't realise it's unrealistic at that point? Certainly if you're coming from the angle of adoption. No. Yeah, I think when you adopting or fostering, and you imagine what it's going to be like to be a parent, and there is an element of you want to give your child the absolute best life you can, like every single parent. And so parents dream about what birthday parties are going to look like, what Easter's going to look like, what Christmas is going to look like, all of these, Halloween, all of these beautiful family events. And the reality it's very, very different. And
it's not that TV advert.
Yeah.
Not.
It's so different. But I found, as an adoptive mom, no one told me that. I don't know if it's like I think I've never given birth to my own babies, but I kind of get you hear a lot of people saying, when it comes to childbirth, why didn't you tell us about that bit? Why does nobody tell us about that bit, that bit's going to happen? Whether it's about pain or something that happens to your body, and it's kind of an unwritten rule that we don't really talk about that because it's going to happen anyway, we don't want to scare you. It's like when it comes to adoption, nobody tells you that the points in family life that you put on a pedestal and that you are determined to make perfect for your children, because they maybe haven't experienced things like that before, and you want to just give them everything that they've never had. Nobody tells you that's you're setting yourself up to fail, because they're not going to be able to cope very well with that at all. And I think that came as a huge shock to me. It took a few years for me to think, actually, this can't just be a coincidence now. And I said to you earlier, didn't I? Not many people would admit, because for a long time I felt like I was just a rubbish mum, because what kind of a mum gets in the bath on Christmas Day night and sobs because the day has been so tricky and full of angst and sadness and tears and just not what you imagine. Everyone sitting around the table with my parents. I'm from a huge family, and we celebrate everything within an inch of its life. It's who we are on parties and gatherings. And to have to realise over the years that in order for us to have a lovely time, because this is the big thing, Christmas now in my house actually is lovely. But it's a very different kind of festive, and it doesn't look anything like I imagined Christmas would ever look. Yeah. And I feel like watch it all fall apart on the 25th of December, because I've said this now, but I feel like we've kind of got it right, and we've taken it down so many notches, it's just unbelievable. And we talked a little bit about this whole feeling of guilt and a bit of grief. I really did have to grieve the Christmas, 'cause I love Christmas, that I thought I was always going to be able to have with kids when I was a mum.
The dream that you created in your head, yeah.
Totally.
The loss of that, because you've connected. Yeah.
And I did, and I had to, and once I had done that and thought, right, okay, so this, let's have a look at all of the things that don't work. And then once your kids have hit education, so even from nursery, you know, you might have just got them settled from the September of starting nursery, and it gets to November and everything's out the window, routine, because it's nativity practices, it's dress rehearsals, it's everyone getting ramped up, it's making Christmas things, it's talking about Santa, and our kids just kind of, it's overload, it is sensory overload. And as much as they want to be excited about it, and they are excited about it, but then being excited about it doesn't often translate. It doesn't look like when a bedroom's getting smashed up, or, you know, something awful's happened at school. That doesn't look like they're excited for Christmas, but that's what it is, the excitement. And so, because I've learned that with my children, anticipation is a tricky one. It's a bit of a pig of an emotion, because I try and sell it to the kids like, this is what you feel, it's anticipation. Actually, this is a good one. And I remember my daughter going like, no, this isn't a good one. This is not one of the good ones. And it just feels, when you know yourself what anticipation feels like. So if your brain isn't able to compute in their kind of neurotypical way and regulate your emotions, it's so powerful, and it just overrides them. It kind of overrides their whole motherboard basically from November onwards.
Yeah,
and it's tricky.
Yeah, definitely. And Claire's mentioned a few key things there that I think we need to just highlight very quickly. That you know, children with FASD, people with FASD, typically struggle with sensory processing, whatever sense that is. But if you start to think about Christmas and break it down, all of a sudden everywhere you go has got twinkling, flashing lights everywhere. Your house is suddenly different because there's a tree where there never used to be a tree before, and that's flashing, and there's all these bright colors and all these reflective materials, and everything's just like visually very, very distracting. There's suddenly these really annoying jingly songs everywhere that you go, in all the shops, you know, played at school, on the radio, everything. You know, there's all these things, and smells as well, you know, that we can associate with Christmas. There's all of these things that can be extremely overwhelming to people who, like Claire said, like you can't process it properly. Like, what do you do with all this? Like, and leading on from that as well, we know that people with FASD like and need structure and routine. Well, that goes out the window at Christmas as well. Anticipation, as Claire said, it's going to trigger nothing but anxiety of like what's happening, or what's it going to be. Like, yes, it's a positive emotion if you can process it and if you can handle that. But for anybody at all suffering from anxiety, that just becomes a trigger. And anticipation turns into like, oh God, what? No, I need to know. And, you know, and even things like, and I don't think this is just children with FASD, it's probably a lot of children, but even to the point of being told what you're eating on that day. You know, Christmas Day comes with this set menu. You know, it does. This is what
in our house it used to, it doesn't now.
Exactly. Why do you have to have the turkey? Why do you have to have all these roast veggies? Why do you have to have Christmas pudding? Like, why do you have to have these things on Christmas Day? What if you don't want those things? And what if you have some oral sensitivities that mean that a lot of those foods are just torturous to you, but you're expected to eat them? So what we want to talk about is how to avoid all of those things that are just going to make children very uncomfortable and have a knock-on effect throughout the family and the household that day. It's just, it might be small changes or it might be really, really big changes, but it's about creating a new normal for Christmas, stepping away from the M&S advert, away from the Waitrose advert, and making your Christmas look different, as festive, as joyful and happy.
It's a different kind of lovely. I talked a little bit this earlier. A different kind of lovely. It's still lovely, but it needs to be different, because if you try and make it, and let's make no bones about it, it's not, you're allowed to be a little bit sad that it's not going to be how you imagined it was going to be. And I really, really miss Christmas dinner. I really miss having a Christmas dinner, and I haven't had one for years on Christmas Day now, years, but I have had peaceful Christmas days with calm and happiness, as opposed to the years where, before I knew that my children had FASD, when I think about the torture that I used to put them through at Christmas, of backwards and forwards to different people's houses, and there's all your toys that Santa's brought, and then, right, come on, we need to go out of the house now and visit here and do this, but the whole rest of my family were doing that, and I really felt like I have to do this, and I wanted to do it, and my children just could not cope, and I was setting them up to fail constantly. They couldn't cope with it, and even I didn't know at the point that I was making them endure this, the problems they had with the sensory differences. So making them sit down to Christmas dinner with their grandparents, I was like, everything's more, we put so much pressure on this one meal, and so much focus on it. And then, when I think about my eldest son, especially when he was younger, like he actually physically wasn't able to eat a lot of the things that were there. And, one Christmas I was like, well, if you don't eat a little piece of that and that, you're not going back to your toys. And like, oh my goodness, it's like that. At that point, it's kind of like saying to a child who is in a wheelchair, well, if you can't get upstairs to the bathroom, well, you're not going to be able to go and play with those toys. It's really no different. And at that point, I didn't know better. I do know better now. But I realised 3 or 4 years ago that Christmas lunch or Christmas dinner was putting so much pressure on us, but also me. Like it was miserable, because I was spending all of this money on a meal that I absolutely knew nobody was going to eat, and I was spending all this time making it. And I think it was the year that I kind of cried making it and thinking, this is not, like, this just isn't nice. It's actually horrible. Yeah. It's horrible.
So what does Christmas dinner look like in your house now? What do you eat?
Pancakes.
Pancakes.
And I make it beautiful and festive. And I set the island in the kitchen is a pancake bar, and you can have crumbled flakes, you can have icing, you can have M&Ms, Smarties, syrup, bacon. There's fruit there, never ever gets touched. Smothered in Nutella, whipped cream, whatever you want on your pancakes, you can have. Because I love, like, one of my sensory needs is I love things to look nice. So I now have my festive tableware is everything that holds everything you would need for sprinkles on pancakes. Yeah. So it still looks lovely and festive, but it's pancakes, and it's just some milk, flour, eggs. So if people don't eat them, it doesn't really matter, because they're so overwhelmed with what's going on. Eating is a whole other topic. Mealtimes are a whole other episode, or 20 episodes. So it's tricky anyway. On a day like that, it's nearly impossible. But pancakes are something that they love. They love them, and it's a treat, even though we'll have them quite a lot. But it's a real treat. But also they're really easy to eat, and there's. And I think unless you live in the FASD world, to say some things like oh, that's really quite easy to eat. I think it sounds a little bit odd really, because, well, all I've got to do is chew, but sometimes that's very, very difficult. So that's what we do, and it's don't leave the house, and it's pajamas. As my daughter's got older, like, she was actually talking yesterday about what she thinks she's going to wear on Christmas Day, because she's asked for a lot, she's asked for clothes for Christmas. She can't wait to get dressed up in them, but she's come to that conclusion herself that she's excited for that. There won't even be a request for either of the boys to get out of pajamas. And I used to love getting dressed up, and I used to love getting them dressed up. But it's just, we need it to be low key in order, from a really, well, actually, I was about to say, from a really selfish point of view, that's what I need. But it's not selfish. It's the absolute opposite, because my kids need me to be firing on all cylinders to survive. For them to survive, they need me to be firing on all cylinders. So for them, I have to make it as easy as I possibly can on me.
Yeah. And so with pancakes, I guess pancakes as well, really, really easy in that you don't have to sit down. There is no formal sitting at a table with your knife and fork and things like that. Does everybody have pancakes at the same time, or are pancakes quite a free-flowing?
They are made at the same time, and actually it's probably one of the it's probably the only meal where I will have a photograph every year, not that they'll know what's happening, because all hell would kick loose, but there is a point every year where the three of them are together around the island, and they're standing, and they're in different stages of putting heaps full of sugar on their pancakes, but they are together, and that's Christmas for us. That's Christmas dinner for us, and I honestly wouldn't be surprised if that was a tradition that they kept.
Mm-hmm.
Because and so the first year I did it, it was like, I'm going to have pancake. They thought it was a brilliant idea, and I was a bit like, but I made it look lovely, and it worked brilliantly. Now, when you see people like, I need to, people at like 4 o'clock in the morning going shopping and needing to get everything that they need for Christmas dinner, and I'm like, yeah, eggs, milk, and flour. And I'm sorted. So it's such pressure off. Honestly, it's lovely. And I'll have some. I'll get a turkey crown, because let's be honest, turkey and stuffing sandwich is the nicest part of Christmas dinner later on and the next day. So I have my mum always makes us stuffing, and I get a turkey breast. And that's what we have. That's what we do, and that's like for later on in the night. And then I feel like that's met my needs. It's something Christmas. Not that I'm not saying that a massive big fluffy American pancake with Nutella and raspberries on doesn't meet my needs, because it does. But I've got the balance right now, and there are still lots of I'm still intervening at every beat of the day. But last year I remember it vividly, because I remember it made us think of how sad I had been on some of my Christmas Day nights. And I got into the bath at about 6 o'clock last Christmas Day, and I actually laughed out loud. I was talking out loud to myself, which I do quite a lot, and I'm fine with that. I'm very comfortable with that. And I was saying, oh my God, Claire, like this is lovely. This has been lovely. This is so peaceful and so calm. And I think that to anyone who's struggling, or who might be dreading it a little bit, if you find the right thing, the hardest part of it, I know I'm talking loads about this, but it's because I've got so much experience and I know how emotive it is and how hard it can be. The hardest part for me was not having to explain to my family, because they weren't expecting that. But the hardest part for me was kind of saying, oh yeah, no, when I'm not going to be able to do that. We're not going to be able to do that bit or that bit or that bit, and this is what we're doing. And everyone was like, oh, absolutely, we totally understand that, but it's to formally step away from some of those traditions is pretty hard, but so worth it. Definitely.
And even with with thinking about anticipation in particular, you know, in my experience, you don't, kind of like you do with toddlers, you don't mention something that's going to happen until it's happening, and you're in it. But with Christmas, I've heard people don't wrap gifts for kids with FASD, or if they do wrap the gift, they write on the tag what it is, or the children will write a list of the gifts they're asking for. Everything is purchased and they're handed over saying, here's your Lego. So that there is no anticipation whatsoever, but they're still getting that enjoyment of unwrapping, and you're still getting to watch them open their presents.
I think everyone has a different way of doing Santa, don't they, with the kids, everyone. And from the beginning, I've always said, because I didn't want them to think that just whatever you asked Santa for, he brought it, because financially with 3 kids that's just not an option. So we've always done these are, you know, here's some of the things you're asking for Santa, and I have to, this is our budget because I need to send that money to Santa and he'll decide which of those things you're going to get, and then there's presents off me. So and we've always kind of, it's been like a little bit of an unspoken acknowledgement that, you know, we'll talk over and over and over again, and we'll specify, so if Santa's going to bring you that, so what colour do you think would be, which of those colours would you like, and is that exactly the one? And we'll talk about it over and over and over, even at 13, 14, 15, so that there aren't really any huge surprises at all. No surprises. Yeah, because I think something very tricky for our kids on the run up to Christmas is the whole talk of, have you been good? Have you been good for Santa?
The whole naughty and nice list.
But Jess, so because I was a mum for a decade, remember, before I knew what was at play with my children, I was the worst for that.
Yeah.
When I think now about the pressure that I put them under, trying to control symptoms of a brain injury in order to ensure that Santa was going to give them what they'd asked for, like, I can't even imagine what I put them through. But actually I can, because I was dealing with the fallout of what I was putting them through, and I didn't realise that I was causing all of that. And so such well-meaning people, especially when they're littler, it's not a thing now when they're teenagers, but when they were littler, you know, everyone, because everyone wants to get excited. Are you excited for Santa coming? Have you been a good boy? And, you know, I remember me a letter to Santa off one of my kids one year saying, I know that I'm probably not going to be able to get these things, because I know that I'm probably going to have a lot of muddles. So he's writing his Christmas list, and he's also saying, but I know I'm going to really have some muddles, so I might not get all of these things, because they just associate that with being naughty. That's naughty, that's being bad. And it's not behaviour at all. It's a symptom of a brain injury. So I think for a lot of, you know, any parents and carers of Santa age little kids now, that'll be something that they have got no control over. And I mean, you haven't got very much control over people having that conversation with your kids. Even just people in shops, you know. So that's another thing that's happening. And it's years down the line that I've fully understand that. I didn't for years while it was happening to them every year. I didn't think about what that was doing, and that's another tricky aspect.
Yeah, and I think the message that we're really trying to get across here is do what works for you and for your kids. There is no, try and disconnect from this pressure, the societal pressure, these, you know, all the television adverts, everything that you see on social media, everything that everybody else appears to be doing. You know, just because you have Christmas dinner on Christmas Day doesn't mean that you have to have Christmas dinner on Christmas Day. If that's not suitable for your family, if that's not appropriate for your children, just don't do it. Just, you know, as hard as that might be for you to let go, as Claire's been talking about, just don't do it and see what happens, because it could be the answer. That could be the difference. And even decorating your house, like maybe put up one tree. Do we need all the sparkles covering the house? Like, it might be too much for the child that you're caring for, the child that you're supporting, because if they've got that overload at school in the classroom where it's unavoidable, home is their safe space. So what is causing them all that trouble in the classroom when all the glitter and the sparkles come out, let's not take that home.
And I think what you've just made me think about a little bit there is, and this definitely is a message of hope, and this definitely is something that I would have longed to hear from a mother like me all those years ago. I went through a good few years where I kind of quartered the decorations. They went up, again, and I used to feel the pressure for people. You've not got your tree up yet. No, because it's quite tricky for them. It's Christmas. What do you So I would like 17th, 18th, 19th of December before I would put the tree up, because I just knew we were going up a whole other level when that happened. And so I wouldn't put as much stuff out, or I would gradually do it over the space of 2 weeks. So just a few little things out. Because as well, Christmas is always going to be here. So you've got to help them cope with it and help them create ways to cope with it. You can't just pretend it's not happening and kind of Grinch it all away and just put them in this little cocoon where it's not happening, because it is. But what I've realised actually is, as they've now getting up into their mid-teens, I'm kind of coming out of it and the other end a little bit. So it's going, I know that this year I'm going to be able to go to town a little bit more on the decorations. Maybe not with a new puppy that we've got, but like out of puppy height, I'm going to be able to do Christmas a little bit bigger in the house than I did last year, and certainly the year before, and definitely the year before that. So I actually hadn't realised that, and so that's lovely. That's actually made me feel really happy, because when you're in it, you're in the arena, your head's down, and you are just dealing with it and surviving and living this life. Sometimes it's difficult to take a look up and think, oh God, like look where I've come a little bit. But I've just realised that about Christmas stuff. And the kids are talking about it a little bit more this year and asking when the tree's going to be going up, and so where mine have never really done that before, because it's just been I've just been in the thick of the chaos, really. Yeah, it's just too much. So that's something that I hadn't really thought about, that I think and I would like to think that that's because I pared it back to their pace for a few years.
Because you're now living a different kind of festive.
Totally. That I'm, things are able. We're gonna. I would like to think we're gonna way back to a happy medium. But can I just tell you something that won't happen? We won't go back to a Christmas dinner.
No.
That's not going to happen, because I actually don't want that to happen now, because I love what we do more than what we ever did before. So that's always going to be a tradition for us, and I love it. But I'm not going to lie, the first year I did it, it made us sad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I felt like I was settling for this. This is my Christmas dinner. I felt a bit sorry for myself about it, but now it gets us excited.
And I feel like we've come through actually that over the last 30 so minutes. What we started talking about was the expectations around Christmas, and our own expectations and parental expectations, how transition through those changes, the struggles that come with that, both from the parental perspective and for the child, and pushing through, like figuring out what it is that needs to change, to now reaching a point where things have changed and your kids are excited about Christmas because it's their Christmas, and you're excited about Christmas because it's their Christmas, and it's an FASD kind of Christmas. And that now is what is magical in your home. And we don't need to, you don't need to follow any of these like societal expectations around Christmas Day, because FASD doesn't follow any other societal expectations. Like it's that whole like, square peg round hole kind of thing that this whole podcast is about. But you know, it's still magical. That's the point we're trying to get across. That
Definitely, it definitely is. The minute you stop using your energy to do what you feel that, and quite often, and I'm going to be really honest about this, quite often you feel pressure from your family, from extended family, that we've always done it this way and why can't we keep doing it this way. The minute that you decide to use your energy to focus on what is going to make this a lovely, calm and peaceful and happy and muddle free as much as possible Christmas, then it will all change. But I'm not underestimating how difficult that is. It is easier said than done, but it's definitely worth the effort, definitely.
And I'm just going to add one more thing very, very quickly before we finish up, which I believe goes for everybody. Not like this is something that I've been harping on about for years, but it definitely applies with FASD. If for whatever reason you can't do Christmas on the 25th of December, do it the next day. It does not matter. You do your Christmas. If something happens on Christmas Eve or something happens Christmas Day morning, that means plans are out the window, it will just be too much. It would be really, really disruptive to try and power through whatever your traditions are, whether they're FASD friendly or not. Pause. It's another day. Do it again tomorrow. That's it. It's okay.
Whatever makes it work for you and for your family, and maybe, do you know what? Maybe, because I always have to put like a positive spin on things, maybe this year, as different as it's going to be, might make that a little bit easier, because Christmas cannot be as big for anybody as it normally is. It can't be. So maybe this is the year that you are able to say to your in-laws and the extended family that everyone gathers at for Christmas tea, well, we can't this year because Boris says we can't. So maybe that's your little get out clause. Maybe that gives you that little bit of bravery of like, oh, we can't do it. And then you get to see, because trust us, if you can get that right balance, you'll be fiercely brave next year in saying, we're not leaving the house and nobody's coming in, because the difference is night and day. Yeah. So that's my take on it. So, but I hope everyone does have a lovely Christmas. Not that we'll not be speaking to you before Christmas, but we just felt it was important to talk about this different kind of festive now, because we know that you are in the thick of it now.
Especially surrounded by people putting trees up early and everything else this year. So we're bringing this early December, and you know, there will be more episodes going out before Christmas, but we do hope that people have time to just listen to this and think, maybe rethink their Christmas and what it is that they're going to do this year, and just do make it like a different kind of festive and do whatever it is that you need to do. But yeah, we hope that whatever it is that you have planned, it's really, really wonderful and magical, and it ends this year the way that you need it, your family needs it to end.
Yeah, because 2020, we all need a nice Christmas. We all need a peaceful and a happy of a Christmas as we can possibly make it. So that's our hope for you, and we hope that the tips have helped a little bit. And thank you very much for listening to us, and we will speak to you next time.
Thank you. Bye.